Belgium is not the first European country we think of when we hear the words blood-soaked tyranny. Yet, one of Belgium's leaders, King Leopold II's rule over the Congo was a horror story, with a body count on par with Hitler's. So why haven't more people heard of him? King Leopold II of Belgium convinced the world he was a humanitarian, and used that cover to orchestrate what historian Adam Hochschild called one of the great mass killings of recent history. Today, we're going to examine how one man's greed created a system so brutal that it changed how we think about human rights and corporate responsibility. And here's what makes this story particularly relevant. The mechanisms Leopold used, outsourcing violence, plausible deniability, and PR campaigns to hide atrocities, are tactics we still see employed today. The setup. Picture Belgium in the 1860s, a small country with no colonial empire, while its neighbors, Britain, France, the Netherlands, were carving up the world. Leopold II became king in 1865 and was obsessed with one idea. Belgium needed a colony to be taken seriously. But the Belgian parliament wanted nothing to do with expensive colonial adventures. So Leopold did something unprecedented. He would get his colony personally. At the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885, essentially a meeting where European powers divided Africa, Leopold pitched himself as a humanitarian. He created the Association Internationale Africaine, claiming its mission was to suppress the slave trade and bring civilization to Central Africa. As historian Matthew Stannard documents in Selling the Congo, Leopold spent enormous sums on propaganda. It worked. The international community granted Leopold personal ownership of 905,000 square miles of Central Africa, roughly the size of Western Europe, or about 1/4 the size of the United States. Not Belgium's ownership, Leopold's personal property. And here's the kicker. Leopold never set foot in Congo. Not once. He ran the entire operation from his palace in Brussels, creating what would become a template for remote-controlled mass atrocity. The system of terror. By the 1890s, the bicycle craze and automobile industry created massive global demand for rubber. Wild rubber vines grew throughout Congo's rainforests, and Leopold realized he was sitting on a fortune. The problem? Harvesting wild rubber is incredibly labor-intensive. You have to trek deep into forests, find the vines, tap them, and carry heavy loads back. Leopold's solution? Forced labor on an unimaginable scale. Here's how the system worked, as documented by British consul Roger Casement in his 1904 report, a document so damning that it sparked the world's first international human rights movement. Leopold declared all vacant land state property, effectively stealing most of Congo. Then, he divided territories among concessionary companies like the Anglo-Belgian India Rubber Company, known as ABIR. These companies employed the Force-Plique, a private militia of African soldiers under European officers to enforce collection quotas. But here's where the system became truly diabolical. As missionary William Morrison testified in 1903, soldiers would surround villages and take the children hostage. They'd hold them in camps while forcing the parents into the forest to collect rubber. Think about that for a moment. Imagine armed soldiers taking your children, telling you they'll return them only when you've met an impossible quota of raw material you have to find in the wilderness. Swedish missionary E.V. Sjöblom testified about seeing these hostage houses in 1896 and 1897. Children and women were kept in what the force called Maisons des Otages, hostage houses, often starving while their parents desperately searched forests for increasingly scarce rubber vines. Edgar Canisius, a company agent who became a whistleblower, wrote in his 1903 book, A Campaign Amongst Cannibals, that he witnessed hostages in a state of absolute starvation, with their bones lying about unburied because parents couldn't meet quotas in time. This created a cascading catastrophe. Men forced to spend weeks searching for rubber couldn't farm. Crops failed. Famine spread. The social fabric that had sustained communities for centuries collapsed in under a decade. The hand-chopping epidemic. Now we get to perhaps the most infamous aspect of Leopold's Congo: systematic mutilation. The Force Publique soldiers received rifles with rationed ammunition. Officers, paranoid that soldiers would waste bullets on hunting or rebellion, demanded proof that each bullet was used correctly, meaning to terrorize Congolese people into compliance. The proof? A severed human hand for every bullet fired. This wasn't some rogue officer's sadistic invention. This was official policy, documented in administrative records that historian Jules Marchal uncovered in Belgian archives. British consul Casement recorded testimony from village after village. At Banginda, survivors told him they cut off the hands of men, women, and children. American missionary William Henry Shepherd photographed mutilation victims and testified, "I have myself seen 81 hands cut off in one day." The most haunting evidence comes from missionary Alice Seeley Harris. In 1904, she photographed a man named Nsala staring at his 5-year-old daughter's severed hand and foot. Force Publique soldiers had killed and mutilated his daughter because he hadn't met his rubber quota. That photograph traveled the world and helped galvanize the reform movement. Here's the perverse logic. Soldiers who wasted ammunition needed to account for missing bullets, so they'd cut hands from living people. Villages that couldn't meet quotas faced punitive raids where soldiers would kill and mutilate as examples. One Force Publique officer reportedly displayed 1,308 hands from a single expedition, according to Hochschild's meticulously researched King Leopold's Ghost. To modern audiences, this sounds medieval. But remember, this happened during the Victorian era, while Europe was hosting world's fairs celebrating progress and civilization. Weaponizing communities. Leopold's administration employed another insidious tactic, turning communities against each other. The Force Publique recruited soldiers from distant regions, ensuring they had no kinship ties with locals they'd terrorize. But they also armed certain villages as auxiliaries, ordering them to force neighboring communities to collect rubber. As anthropologist Jan van Sina documented in Being Colonized, this destroyed centuries-old social structures. Traditional allies became enemies. Villages that had peacefully coexisted for generations were suddenly raiding each other. Canisius testified that ABIR agents told auxiliary forces, "Bring back so much rubber. If you fail, you yourselves will be shot." Victims, when given opportunity, became victimizers to survive. The Reverend John Harris reported in 1907, "Natives are sent out to raid other villages for rubber and slaves. They are given guns and told to bring back quotas." This strategy reduced European administrative costs while creating divisions that prevented unified resistance. The social destruction outlasted colonialism itself, contributing to instability that affects the Democratic Republic of Congo today, a direct line from Leopold's policies to modern conflict. The death toll. The first Belgian census after Leopold's rule, conducted in 1924, estimated Congo's population at about 10 million. Scholars like Van Sina estimate the pre-colonial population at 20 to 25 million, suggesting roughly 10 million deaths in 23 years. Some historians argue this estimate involves uncertainty because we lack reliable baseline census data. But even conservative scholars acknowledge catastrophic depopulation. People didn't just die from bullets. The forced labor system destroyed agriculture, causing famine. Epidemics ravaged hostage camps. Birth rates collapsed as families were separated. To put this in perspective, if 10 million died, that's half of Congo's population destroyed in one generation. The cover-up and exposure. For years, Leopold's PR machine worked perfectly. He funded explorers and portrayed himself as Africa's benefactor, while pocketing profits equivalent to over $1 billion in today's money, wealth Hochschild meticulously documented through Belgian financial records. The system began cracking when missionaries started sending testimony to their home countries. E.D. Morel, a British shipping clerk, noticed ships leaving Congo carried fortunes in rubber, while ships arriving carried only weapons. This wasn't trade, it was plunder. Morel founded the Congo Reform Association in 1904, launching history's first international human rights campaign. Mark Twain wrote satirical pamphlets. Arthur Conan Doyle compiled evidence in The Crime of the Congo. The turning point came when Britain published Casement's 1904 Consular Report. His meticulous documentation made atrocities undeniable. Under international pressure, Leopold appointed his own inquiry commission. The 1905 report confirmed systematic abuses. Leopold was forced to cede Congo to the Belgian state in 1908, though he was paid for the privilege. He died in 1909, wealthy and largely unrepentant. Counter-narratives and denialism. Leopold's defenders, both historically and in contemporary Belgium, emphasize his stated humanitarian objectives. His 1889 letter to missionaries articulated intentions to bring Christian civilization and suppress slavery. Proponents argue that abuses represented unauthorized actions by subordinates rather than systematic policy. This defense collapses under historical scrutiny. The system that generated atrocities wasn't incidental, but central to Leopold's administration. Hochschild's research demonstrates that the forced labor system, hostage-taking, and quota enforcement through terror weren't deviations from policy, they were the policy itself, necessary to generate the rubber revenues Leopold extracted. Furthermore, Leopold's administration actively suppressed information about atrocities, indicating awareness that practices contradicted humanitarian rhetoric. Documentary evidence demonstrates Leopold's personal involvement in policy decisions. His correspondence shows detailed knowledge of administrative operations, rubber quotas, and enforcement mechanisms. When subordinates reported difficulties meeting quotas without violence, Leopold didn't order humanitarian reforms, but demanded results regardless of methods, a pattern Marshall documented extensively through Belgian state archives in his work E.D. Morel contre Leopold II. Leopold's descendants have periodically attempted rehabilitation of his reputation. During the 2020 statue controversies in Belgium, Prince Laurent of Belgium publicly defended his ancestor, arguing that Leopold should not be blamed for events in Congo due to his physical absence from the territory, and claiming instead that he brought civilization. This statement, widely reported in Belgian media during the Black Lives Matter protests, exemplifies a persistent denialist argument that physical distance from atrocities diminishes responsibility. The modern relevance. As Marshall's archival research demonstrates, Leopold exercised absolute authority over Congo Free State administration. He appointed all officials, set all policies, and personally profited from the system. Leopold's domestic Belgian legacy complicates public memory in ways that reveal fundamental questions about how societies remember uncomfortable histories. He commissioned extensive public works that transformed Belgium's urban landscape, earning him the sobriquet Roi Bâtisseur, the Builder King. These projects included the Royal Museum for Central Africa in Tervuren, the Arcade du Cinquantenaire, and extensive parks and boulevards throughout Brussels. Standard research shows Leopold invested approximately 100 million francs of Congo profits in Belgian construction. Crucially, these architectural monuments Belgians celebrated were literally built with blood money extracted through forced labor, hostage-taking, mutilation, and mass death. The Belgian government has gradually moved toward acknowledging colonial crimes. In 2020, King Philippe expressed deepest regrets for colonial violence, though he stopped short of formal apology. A 2022 parliamentary commission recommended that Belgium formally apologize for colonial-era crimes, return looted artifacts, and reform educational curricula.